Warbles on a lot here with the finale of Outsiders, followed by First Moondog and a bit of a warble rant. There you go.
Hello, is this meeting room 7? I've come for the job interview.
Ah, yes, On the Moon, is it? Excellent. Welcome to Transfield Services, Mr. On the Moon. Take a seat. I'm Mr. Harris. You can call me Ralph. Now, let's see here. You're applying for the role of Senior Negligence Officer, Grade 3, at the Nauru Detention Facility.
Yes, that's right.
Capital fellow. You understand, Mr. On the Moon, that we here at Transfield Services have a long and proud history of meeting, no dare I say it, exceeding all of the Abbott government's requirements, key performance indicators and stakeholder expectations with our management of the facilities on Manus and Nauru.
Well, you're certainly in the news a lot.
There's no business like show business, Mr. On the Moon. Contrary to popular belief, the government doesn't want what happens in these tropical hellholes to be secret. They want it well known. It makes for happy racists at home, and it stops the darkies from hopping on old fishing boats and coming here. They go somewhere else to drown instead, and that is some other idiot's problem.
Out of sight, out of mind?
In a nutshell. That's why here at Transfield Services, we are providing world-class substandard facilities, food, housing, and alleged medical care. We have worked tirelessly to ensure that the inmates of our camps are exposed to all sorts of dangers, including, but not limited to, tropical diseases, poor nutrients, and violence committed by both our own staff, who are supposedly looking after them, and numerous disgruntled locals. We take the money the government gives us very seriously. Now, where was I?
Oh, you were being serious about money.
Ah, yes. Now, the job of Senior Negligence Officer.
Grade 3.
That's right, Grade 3, is to ensure that we continue to utterly fail to meet our duty of care. Is that clear?
Perfectly, sir.
All right. We've just got a few questions. Then there's also the psychological profiling, the exhaustive physical examination, and finally, the working with children check.
Oh, I have passed my working with children check with flying colours. Here you go.
Well, that is a pity. We still might find something useful for you to do anyway. Now, question 1. Here at Transfield Services, we have particular requirements with regard to social media. Do you have any current or former asylum seekers following you on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, YOLO, Pinky Swear, or Dildo Swipe?
Oh, well, I don't think so, but well, how would I know anyway?
You may not, but we do. We'll get the Attorney General on it. Question 2. Are you now, or have you ever been, a member of any church, political party, or book club that opposes mandatory detention or that opposes Transfield Services? That's us, making buckets of money out of human misery.
Oh, well, I was in the first Queanbeyan Cub Scouts when I was a kiddie, but I didn't really like the lederhosen. I'm not really a joiner, you see. I don't even have any friends or pets, well, at least not living ones.
Interesting. Would you describe yourself as a troubled loner?
Oh, if it would help me get the job, yes.
Okay, multiple choice. You find out that Scott Morrison knew about the sexual abuse of children on Nauru for 17 months and did nothing about it. Do you A, weep for what our nation has become? B, renew your subscription to Troubled Loner Monthly? C, succumb to the cries of the human rights lawyers? Or D, call the AFP and try to have him arrested?
Oh, B?
Correct. Well done. Question 11. Have you ever attended a public rally, demonstration, sit-in, die-in, bum-off or gumboot toss, calling for the closure of offshore detention centre camps?
Oh, I wore a giraffe onesie to the opening night of Rocky Horror Picture Show when I was a student at the George Brander School of the Arts.
Correct. Are you aware that you have certain civil liberties, freedom of speech, right to association, that sort of thing?
Yes, I know about those.
Do you have them with you?
Oh, well, I think so. Let me check. Yes, here they are.
Right, pop them in this bucket, would you? We may or may not return these to you at an unspecified point in the future, or not. All right, last question. Where do you see yourself in 5 years' time?
Well, if I'm any good at this job, probably testifying in front of a royal commission.
Marvellous. When can you start?
Thanks, Dog. And that's it for RN Sunday Extra today.
Well. That is just about the state of play. Tony Abbott has finally admitted that the purpose of his stop the boats policy is to be cruel and break the human rights of everybody who has succeeded in arriving in Australia on a boat without paperwork. The fact that they may have been deemed to be refugees doesn't really matter to them. It's a political necessity for his party and national survival for them not to ever be allowed to come and live in Australia. Every year they've been, 5,000 people showed up in a boat, boo-hoo, sob, how dare they? And every year there's something like 55,000 show up on a jet plane. And the people who show up on a jet plane and disappear when their tourist visa expires or their student visa or their working holiday visa or whatever it is, and they just decide they don't want to go back to the rest of the world, 55,000 of them. But, they tend to come from Europe and they blend in a bit better, and there's no great hue and cry about them. You can't get votes in the redneck middle class working suburbs on the policy of stop people from coming here on a jet plane. But the big thing that happened this week was the release of the phone camera video footage of a white American policeman firing 8 shots at the back of a black fella who was running away. And it turned out that he'd stopped this black fella for driving his own car, but it had a broken tail light. And then they later released video footage from the recording device inside the police car. It was a Mercedes. The black man was not only driving while black, but he was driving a Mercedes when the white cop stopped him and told him he had a broken taillight. And then the cop and the bloke talked for a couple of minutes. A couple of times the fella tried to jump out of his car and run away because he was scared. The cop dropped his taser on the ground, shot the fella in the back, and claimed afterwards that the dead civilian had been trying to steal the taser, and the cop was in fear for his life when he shot him in the back, running away 25 feet away, and managed to miss with at least 3 of his shots too, by the by. I was talking about this in the comments section under VB Ed's video on the execution murder of Walter Scott, and Ed seemed to think that all 8 shots had hit the bloke, whereas I remember hearing on the news only 5 got him. And Ed seemed to think that the cop had emptied his magazine because that was how he was trained. No, he was trained to only fire half the shots. The coppers carry a thing called a Glock, and the Glock is chambered in a 9mm diameter specially invented cartridge called a Parabellum that originally fired in the old 08 Luger. But the 08 Parabellum 9mm round, Parabellum means for war. So it's particularly good at shooting people at about 25 metres. Beyond that, the barrel's too short and you're a bit stupid shooting at people with a pistol, anything more than 25 metres. But up to that, it's highly effective. It's the same cartridge they use in just about all the, what they call the service pistols, the guns that the army carry on their waistband or strapped to their leg. It's the chamber that the cartridge they use in most of the submachine guns and machine pistols. It's a man-stopping slug. and the Glock carries 16 of them, packed sort of side by side in a big fat handle. And the cops are trained to not shoot more than half the magazine in the first burst sort of thing, because they might want to deal with somebody else who comes from out of the woodwork or the shrubbery or whatever it is. Gee, that aeroplane's got itself in a bit of a difficult situation. So anyway, only fired half the bullets, and the cops are taught to aim at the biggest thing there is, which is the torso, because pistols, as I said, they're not good at hitting things with any degree of precision unless, you know, you're lying down with a bench rest and a sandbag. And put it this way, people who shoot rifles with iron sights at 25 metres, they shoot at a target which is a black dot the size of a 20-cent piece with a 10-cent bit in the centre of that as being the actual bullseye. People who shoot pistols at 25 metres, they shoot at a piece of paper that's got a black dot on it, and the black dot's the size of a car steering wheel, maybe bigger with, you know, modern cars having power steering and small wheels. Pistols are notoriously inaccurate, so the cops shoot at the torso, or any military pistol training, and there's not much other pistol training because, you know, it's a people gun. It's not much good for hunting. It's only good for shooting at people and shooting at them close. The average range in a gunfight in America, where there are more gunfights than anywhere else in the world, is 8 feet. But yeah, that cop was shooting at a fella who was running away, which is, I think it's a function of the psychological changes that happen to people who carry firearms for defence. When you carry a gun all the time because you might want to shoot at something, you become really adept at calculating the bullet drop and the deflection and the windage in order to be able to hit anything that you can see. And you've got to shoot in front of it if it's moving, and above it if it's a long way away, and off to the side if the wind's blowing. It's called the ballistic calculation. And when you carry a gun all the time, you do it for everything you can see. You look at the world through a target graticule. And I've noticed that the police, when they've been in a town for a while and arrested a few people, the ones that arrested me, I used to make a habit of nodding to them and smiling and waving and touching the brim of my hat to them, literally tipping my hat. But after 6 months or 2 years, they noticed that every time they saw me, I was already touching the hat to them, which meant I could have, if I had wanted to, pulled a gun out and shot them before they saw me. And they all left town, everyone that ever arrested me. The current crop of them, they've never arrested me, so when I wave to them, they think I'm just a friendly hillbilly. And they wave back, and it's really cool. But it just shows the difference in attitude to how police see somebody who they've previously identified as being a threat who needs to be contained and arrested and all that. Yep. So if they carry a gun, everything they see, they calculate what they can do to hit it, and then they realise that anybody else who had a gun, who had a hatred for the cops, could be doing the same to them. And they get to feel like they're a walking target because they're carrying a gun. And they live in a totally paranoid bubble where they perceive everything differently. That white cop saw a black fella driving a Mercedes and assumed it must have been stolen. And he was working on the assumption that he was dealing with a dangerous predator the whole time. As soon as the black fella twitched and tried to run away, white cop starts shooting at him. Then he realises, oh, I'm not going to get away with that. I better plant some evidence on him. Put the taser down there. I think cops should be allowed to have a flak jacket or a gun. They should not be allowed to have both. Letting them go armed and armoured is a really silly idea, particularly in Australia, where the citizenry aren't allowed to have handguns. But the Australian cops read the Australian Police Association magazine, and it reprints American Police Association magazines. And in America, the driver's steering wheel is on the left-hand side of the car, so a right-handed person can keep a pistol, in which there's 300 million of them in America, under his right leg, ready to shoot whoever looks their head in through the left-hand window. Bang. So all the Australian cops are paranoid about being shot while they're patrolling the streets, because it happens in America, apparently. Well, the Falcon's got itself tied in a knot again. It's because it's hanging on a rubber band. So there you go. As you can see, people who are familiar with my channel, the Falcon's gone back to having the original old yellow wing. It's got about 2.5 ounces of epoxy and fiberglass on it. So with the epoxy on the fuselage, it means that thing is probably weighing around about